Okay, I'm getting the sense here that they can hear us, and at the same time, they can see what I'm looking at. So this is part of the Summa Theologica, which is basically the summary of theology. And the whole Summa is structured as a series of contrasts between the old dogma, which was based on pre-Aristotle works, and the contrast that comes from reading Aristotle, who has been recently readmitted into their world, and Thomas Aquinas is an Aristotelian. So he's faced with these questions, and as you can see, he uses a format. What is this thing? I don't know why that's there. Why am I getting all of this stuff? It's not helping. Well, his question is whether to be loved is more proper to charity than to love. He's going to argue that loving is more proper than to be loved. So a better man, through being better, is more lovable, but through having more perfect charity, loves more. He loves more, however, in proportion to the person he loves. For a better man does not love that which is beneath him less than it ought to be loved, whereas he who is less good fails to love one who is better as much as he ought to be loved. I didn't say it would be easy.
What are you guys reading?
So this is a portion of Thomas Aquinas' Summa. What we're looking at is a contrast between Nietzsche, who we just looked at, where power is the whole ethical good. You want more power, and weakness, like charity, and Christianity is his he's critiquing Christianity. That's the weak thing. This is Darwinian evolution. This survival of the fittest, basically, and so power is the goal for Nietzsche.
But isn't religion powerful though? That's a
Um,
form of power structure.
That's an interesting sociological question. In fact, where does the power come from? I mean, when I'm thinking in terms of, I've already posed the quiz question too, and that is, how would you mediate between warring parties over territory? And where does your power come from? The contrast ethically for me is between grasping for power and not having any love for others, not having any care for others, and what I thought of as the total opposite of that, where your highest goal is taking care of others, loving others. So if you think about this as the contrasting moral principle that's driving what? It's driving your meta-narrative. It's your monomyth. Right? So if you think about it, what's the value behind your monomyth? What would make somebody a hero? Achilles, killing people? That's one type of hero. But what we, of course, typically think of as the heroic in a post-Christian world, post-Christian in the sense it's now Christian, would be, of course, Jesus is the model. Right? And what does Jesus do? He dies for others. He dies for his friends, right?
So like if Achilles is one example, then like Patroclus would be the other example, if you're talking about like self-sacrifice would deem somebody in the eyes of a hero.
Who's Patrick?
Patroclus is it's like in Greek mythology. I don't know if you know who Achilles is.
I think a little bit.
So like in the story of Achilles, like basically way when Achilles was young, his father housed a lot of young boys, and basically they kind of grew up to be warriors. While Patroclus was from a very, not a poor, but just a lesser kind of family, and he was just like kind of like a black sheep. They sent him off and thought that, you know, he'd be at least make the family proud if he became something from the father of Achilles. And Achilles and him ended up becoming very close. And it's kind of like a very, it's just like a, not irrelevant, it's just kind of like a famous little argument people have in literature is basically what the relationship between him and Achilles was. Because the translation of it is they were comrades, they were close, they were best friends. In the movie, it's their cousins. In books, it was they were lovers. And it's just kind of like everyone has different opinions on what they are and what they weren't. But it's just like a fun little story. But he basically had very, like a lot of undying love for Achilles. And Achilles was hurt and they were going to kill him. They knew how to kill him. And he woke up one day out of Achilles' tent, stole off his armor, and led the battle. And everyone's like, oh, get Achilles. And like, wait, that's a really scrawny man. That's not Achilles. And then they kill him and they're like, yep, not Achilles. And basically Achilles just like loses it, ends up dying. They get buried together. Like,
Aww.
he's like, he's begging Achilles' mom, who is just like other, like, I don't really know what she is, but she's just like this
She
other
is
sort of
a
entity.
semi-deity, or
Yeah, she's like, you know, she has the will and the power to bring them together, and all he wants is basically like their souls to be together. And it's just the way that they write.
that's a lot of new stuff added to
Yeah.
the Iliad.
It's a cool little story.
Well, yeah, I mean, our task today is to talk about moral argumentation, keeping in mind that morality or values, ethics, usually will have principles such as Nietzsche's what is power? You know, power is what is good, and then you have the opposite. The Christian point of view, charity is good, right? And charity, actually, caritas means love.
So was it power is good, or was it is it goodness is power, or is it power is good because power? I forgot the argument, but like there was an argument like, is what is good because God decided it was good, or was it?
That's the Euthyphro, yeah.
Yeah. So is it by definition good, or is it?
Well, this is Nietzsche, being a Darwinian in a sense. Although I should always mention he had disagreements with some of Darwin that were relevant. But in any case, Nietzsche is defining the good as power, in the sense of a physical power that enables you to overpower your enemies and so on. And I didn't get into more complexity over that. Actually, Nietzsche doesn't either. There's of course individuals that are very fond of Nietzsche historically, Hitler for one, and there's a really close connection actually, because when you look at the connection between individuals, so Schopenhauer was a philosopher. Let me talk about Schopenhauer a little bit. So Schopenhauer besides being ugly, almost as ugly as me. It's kind of fun. Everybody disliked him, even his mother. But the only one that did love him was his dog. And I'm not sure. Let me double check and see if we've got a picture of his dog in here. Well, that's not a good one. But there's a famous picture of him with his dog. How come I'm not going to find it now? That's nasty. Let's just do this. Schopenhauer. He's got a poodle. And pick an image. And there you could see the poodle sitting next to him.
His haircut from the same place.
So that's kind of fun. But Schopenhauer influenced Nietzsche, as you can see. His book was The World as Will and Representation. Did you see it somewhere?
Somewhere at the top.
Yep. Okay. So the world is will and representation. He is influenced by Buddhism, and karma is essentially my interpretation of what he is saying is the will, and it's like fate. The world has this fate that just no matter what you want to do, it's going to resist you. In fact, one of the people that he influenced was Richard Wagner. Richard Wagner, I don't know if you're familiar with him and his music, but he was so influenced by Schopenhauer that he wrote a series of operas that depicted the gods as fighting against this will, and losing, right? So they basically, at the very end, the last opera is the Twilight of the Gods, where the gods end up losing to just fate, basically, through individuals, but nonetheless, they lose. And then that's the end of the world of the gods, and it becomes the world of men. So it's the ring cycle, it's called, because the ring is the main element, symbolic element in that. Very similar in a lot of ways to the Lord of the Rings, the Tolkien series. But so the will, is this undercurrent of everything that just forces itself on us, no matter what we would like. Nature kind of forces us into these miserable situations.
Is fate like determinism, like the fact that everything is already laid out, or is it like the idea that
Very
the
much
world
so.
is like a draw?
There's no recourse. It will get you, no matter what you think up. It's going to get you. In a way, I think of it as entropy. Just a cheap physics way of interpreting it. But
like things aren't permanently. Is that what you mean?
Everything falls apart.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, we fight against it, and we create actually more and more complex organizations and so on, technologies and things that help us survive. But the oddest way of looking at that is that actually only speeds up entropy. The more technology we develop, the more fuel we burn, the faster global warming occurs, right? So the very devices that we use to try to sustain ourselves, in the end, actually are working towards the entropy that's destroying everything. haven't I mentioned, or maybe I haven't mentioned, the book, Into the Cool by, Dorian Sagan. So if you're familiar with Carl Sagan,